This video is on triangular, square and cube number patterns. So you've already come across square numbers and cube numbers last year and in junior high, so I'm going to start with them. So your square numbers come from squares and the area inside the squares. So the first square number is just one square that has an area of 1 by 1 or 1 times 1, which is 1. Then the second square number comes from a 2 by 2 square. So 2 times 2 or 2 squared gets you the 4. Then the third square number comes from a 3 by 3 square. So 3 times 3 would get you the area of that, or how many wee dots there are in there if you want to think of it like that. So 3 rows of 3, 3 times 3 or 3 squared gets you 9. And that just keeps going. And you're able to get them on your calculator, which I don't have nearby. Hold on. You're able to get them on your calculator using that button there. But you don't always have a calculator in the year 12 exam. I know you're not doing the exam, but whenever you come back and you're doing tests and stuff, you don't always have the your calculator, but that's your squared button there. So if you wanted, for example, this number here, the 6th square number, you would type in 6 and then that wee squared button and then equals, and it'll tell you that the 6th square number is 36. Okay, and then going back from that, your square root button, if you press that square root button and square root the 36, it'll take you back to 6. Okay, so those are your square numbers. They would expect you to know these right the way up to around 10 squared, even beyond that, right up to 15 squared. They'd expect you to know 15 times 15. Then your cube numbers, they come from cubes and it's volume this time. So the volume would be like your length times breadth times height. That line's missing there. So the first cube number would be a 1 by 1 by 1 cube, and the volume of that 1 times 1 times 1 or 1 cubed gets you 1. Then the second cube number would be a 2 by 2 by 2 cube. So the amount of wee individual cubic centimeters in there would be, it's 2 by 2 at the bottom. So there's a layer of 4 there, and then times by 2, there'd be another 4 on top. So 2 times 2 gets you 4, 4 times 2 gets you 8. Your third cube number, 3 by 3 by 3, and 3 times 3 would get you a layer of 9 in the bottom, and then times by 3 because it's 3 tall, and 9 times 3 gets you 27. And they'd expect you to know those only up to about 5 cubed, but you should still be able to work these other ones out, either by doing 5 times 5 times 5, for example, or using that button on your calculator. So that would be, you would press the 5 and then your cubed button, and it would get you what 5 cubed is. And then going back from that, your cube root button, now this comes up in different places depending on your calculator. On mine, it's up above the x cubed. I think on a Casio calculator, zoom in a wee bit there, I think on a Casio calculator, it's above the square root button. So there's the square root button. On the Casio one, I think the cube root is above that, but on mine, it's above here. So I would press shift and that to get the cube root. And then the cube root of 125 takes you back to 5. All right, so there's your just a reminder of your square numbers and cube numbers. The new numbers then. Oh, something about your square numbers and cube numbers actually that I'd like you to highlight in your notes. There's a number, or there's 2 numbers that appear in both lists because they're square numbers and cube numbers. So 1 is a square number and cube number, and so is, where's the other one? 64 is a square number. It's the answer to 8 times 8, and it's also the answer to 4 times 4 times 4. So those 2 numbers are important. I think there's a question in your workbook that's to do with those 2 numbers. Right, your triangular numbers then, they just come from triangle patterns. So the first triangular number is whenever you've got just 1 dot, and then you just build up underneath that. So there's your 1 dot, and then you put 2 underneath that, so that's 3 altogether. And then that wee picture, the 1 with the 2 underneath, is copied here, and then you've got a row of 3, which would bring you up to 6 altogether, and then you add on a row of 4, and then a row of 5, and then a row of 6, so you're adding on an extra 1 each time. So you're doing 1 plus 2 gets you 3, then plus 3 gets you 6, plus 4 gets you 10, plus 5 gets you 15, plus 6 gets you 21, plus 7 gets you 28, and so on. So you can work it out by drawing out the pictures if you want, starting with 1 dot and then put 2 underneath, 3 underneath, 4 underneath, and so on, or else just try to remember this wee pattern here. But they're called triangular numbers, obviously, because they make a triangle. Okay, there's not really much that you can do with these numbers, apart from that you need to be able to maybe recognize them. Like they could just ask you, what are these numbers, and just give you 1, 3, 6, 10, 15, and you're supposed to spot that they're triangular numbers. And the same with the square numbers. They could give you, what type of numbers are these, 1, 4, 9, 16, and get you to work out what they are. So that's all that you've got to fill in there in your notebook. Well, not really anything to fill in, just highlight a few numbers and maybe fill in this wee pattern. And then in your workbook, you're doing exercise, or not exercise, section 9.1 that goes with these. So I've already got these all answered. So instead of me scanning the answers and just putting them up, I'll talk you through some of the answers. So if you want, you can pause the video now and you go and try the workbook answers on your own, and then come back and check them. So you're doing page 2 in your workbook. So if you want to pause this and come back. Okay, so these are the answers. So question 1, just write down the first 10 square numbers. You've actually got those in your notebook as far as, yeah, they're all just in your notebook. So that's them there. 1, 4, 9, 16, 25, 36, and so on. So I just copied those over. The first 5 cube numbers, they're just from here. 1, 8, 27, 64, 125. It's just to get you used to where you're picking these numbers from and what they are. Write down the first 10 triangular numbers, and can you see a pattern? There's your first 10 triangular numbers there. 1, 3, 6, 10. And then the pattern was the one that I was talking about. Add on an extra one each time. Then part of a sequence of triangular numbers is this, and then they want you just to write down which triangular numbers come directly before the 21. It's in this book there. Before the 21 is the 15. Then write down the smallest triangular number, which is greater than 100. So I just continued on up here. So that was 21 plus 7 gets you 28, plus 8 gets you 36, then plus 9, plus 10, plus 11, plus 12, plus 13, plus 14, until I got up over 100. So the smallest triangular number, which is greater than 100, would be this one here, 105. Then question 5. So write down 2 numbers that are triangular numbers and square numbers. So I just looked at the 2 lists to see which ones come up that are both triangular and square. So 1 is a square number because 1 times 1 gets you 1. 36 is a square number because of 6 times 6. And then 1 and 36 are there in triangular numbers as well. There's the 1 and there's the 36. So you're just really looking for a number that's in this list and in this list. So keep looking back at your notebook. Then write down the name of the numbers in this sequence. They've just given you a few of the cube numbers. You just write down cube numbers. What numbers under 100 are both square and cube? They're the ones that I got you to highlight here, the 1 and the 64. Hannah adds together 2 consecutive triangular numbers. Consecutive means one after the other. So 2 consecutive triangular numbers. And what kind of number does Hannah get? So I just added up 2 consecutive triangular numbers, so ones that come one after the other. So I added up 1 and 3 and got 4. Then I added up 3 and 6. Then I added up 6 and 10. Then I added up 10 and 15, and so on, just to see what you get. So you get 4, 9, and 16, which are square numbers. So whenever you add 2 triangular numbers that are consecutive, so one after the other, you end up getting a square number. Which number under 20 is both triangular and prime? So I wrote out the triangular numbers under 20, so just getting them from this first list here. And then your prime numbers are the ones that don't divide by anything except themselves and 1. So 2, 3, 5, 7, 11, 13, 17, 19, and the number under 100 that comes up in both lists is just 3. Okay, so that's it. Not really very much here to do with triangular, square, and cube numbers. So that is it done.